in October, going through treatments every week now. Retirement specialist Mary Denman is also continuing her cancer treatment. Praise is Halton High School freshman Luke Spinney made it home from St. Jude's and is done with cancer treatment. Praise is Coach Bob Brotherton. For Bob Brotherton, he received a good report from the doctor. Pray for continued healing. Also praises for Ronnie Coker, retired baseball coach and athletic coordinator at Airline High School. He got the news recently. He is cancer free. Like always, those have been directly and indirectly affected by COVID.
Thank you. This evening, in recognition of our passing of the gavel, I had asked if Mr. Bass's children would participate in the prayer and the pledge. So we will have Baylor Bass come and say the prayer, followed by Beckett and Bear for the pledge. You can come to the podium if you like.
Everyone, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day that you have blessed us with, and allowing us to join together to make decisions for our schools. I would ask that you please watch over our great school system, administrators, teachers, students, school board members, superintendents, and everyone who plays a part in helping our students learn and grow. I ask that you would watch over us tonight, and let every decision here be made to glorify your name. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Perfect job. Do we have any BYL students present tonight? If you would, please stand up and introduce yourself and what school you're from.
I'm Baylor Wilkerson. I'm from Halton High School. I'm Emma Maynard. I'm from Halton High School.
I'm Kylie Tree and I'm from Benton High School.
I'm Colin Herndon from Benton High School.
I'm Jordan Perry from Halton High.
Thank you. We're excited to have y'all join us tonight. As if 2020 wasn't exciting enough, 2021 blew in with a snowmageddon. However, we did not allow this to detour us from our goals of having a successful year. 2021 was marked as a year of expansion and growth for our school community. We opened new wings at Cope Middle and Benton Intermediate Schools, as well as repairing much of the damage caused by the winter storms. A highlight of the year was being honored as Business of the Year by Bossier Chamber of Commerce based on our diligence and response to learning initiatives under the COVID guidelines and keeping schools open with face-to-face learning. Bossier Parish continues to set the bar, being the first public school to offer 100% virtual learning in Louisiana. Through this adversity, our students have continued to excel. As the entire state saw a dip in student achievement levels, Bossier Parish has 16 schools with simulated top gains honorees earning an A for student progress, as well as 7 schools that achieved equity honorees. Bossier Parish was one of the 28% of districts in the state of Louisiana that showed improved state performance school scores, improving by a half point. 3 seniors were named National Merit Finalists, and the senior class of 2021 received more than $31.4 million in college scholarships and TOPS funding. Bossier Parish celebrated our highest graduation rate district-wide of 91.2%. Through continued collaboration and exemplary efforts from our staff, teachers, parents, and community, Bossier Parish is the fastest growing school district in North Louisiana and the second in the state with 22,622 students. We are approaching the near completion of a $210 million school construction program and will soon be faced with addressing record growth throughout our parish. Bossier continues to be a desired place to live and to educate children, and we appreciate the taxpayers' continued support in providing salaries and building programs. Thank you to Superintendent Superintendent Downey and your staff for your countless hours and dedication as we continue to navigate life through a pandemic. No doubt, 2022 will be filled with many surprises as well. What you can be assured is that this board and administration will continue to work diligently to positively prepare students, protect students and staff's health to the best of our ability, and be prudent with taxpayer dollars. Thank you to this board for entrusting me to fill the duties of the presidential role, and Mr. Bass for your support as vice president. I know through our courage, collaboration, and confidence with each other and administration, we will continue to be a leader in education. Thank you.
Courage, your wisdom, and your patience. Appreciate all you've done.
And at this time, it is time for the passing of the gavel. Mr. Bass, it's my pleasure to pass this on to you in all responsibility.
I'd like to ask Mr. Bachhaus, who is the incoming vice president, to come up and join me here and then recognize his family and special guests that are here with him.
I'm not real sure whether to thank you or not. Last year was really something special. But anyway, we'll do the best we can, and I'd like to personally thank Tammy. She did one great job to get us through last year. It was so stressful, and we wouldn't have made it without such good employees, there's no doubt about that. Our students and their parents, it's just been remarkable. But anyway, my biggest thing I've got going for me is my family. And I'd like to introduce them now. Now, people ask me, how come I got such good looking kids? Well, you're fixing to find out. I'd like to introduce my wife, Jane. That's where they get their looks. Oldest son, Brad Bachhaus. One of my friends, Blair Bachhaus. Father, Kim Bachhaus. My whole family didn't show up because we got a pretty long agenda. It would have taken a long time to introduce all 22 of them. But anyway, we'll do the best we can, and I thank the board for having faith in me, for giving me this position. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bachhaus. I also want to thank District 3 Representative Tammy Smith for her service and leadership in 2021. Definitely got a chance to know you a lot better and know your heart, and I want to thank you for your service. So, I want to thank my fellow board members for placing your confidence in me to serve as the president in 2022. I also want to thank my friend Dennis Bamberg for his vote against me for serving as president. Although I know he intended his vote for a joke, it reminded me of my favorite Bible verse on how leaders should lead. Philippians 2:3 reads, "Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves." So thank you, my friend, for the reminder to always be humble. I want to thank my family. you stand up. My student body president of Legacy there, Bear Bass. And Beckett, who is my reader, please stand up. I want to thank you all for your unwavering love and support, and I love each of you with all my heart. I also want to thank all my friends and supporters that came here to participate in tonight. Tonight begins my journey as the president of the Bossier Parish School Board. I've had the opportunity in the past to lead many successful teams and organizations. I learned from those experiences that it is important for a leader to honestly evaluate the organization which they are asked to lead. What I see and continue to see is that the most outstanding resource of the Bossier Parish School Board is our employees. Our employees have done everything that has been asked of them during the pandemic, and they have done it with amazing passion and perseverance. Our students have responded to their work with performance. This is evidenced, as mentioned by Tammy earlier, by the growth we recently saw in school performance scores. We are one of only 28% of school districts in Louisiana to see growth this past year. In order to honestly evaluate what we can improve, we must listen. I have listened, and what I hear from both constituents and our employees is that what has been mandated by the governor and enforced by the Louisiana Department of Health and the Louisiana Department of Education for COVID-19 isn't working. We have repeatedly asked for information from these government entities in order to evaluate what can be done to improve the education of the students in Bossier Parish during COVID. The information we have asked for either isn't being tracked or these entities are unwilling to provide the data. It is extremely difficult to locally address this problem when the information only flows one way. An example of one question that we have asked repeatedly is, what percentage of the students that are contact traced result in those students testing positive for COVID? We have not been able to get an answer. Are those students that are asked to quarantine for contact tracing actually quarantining, or are they not coming to school? Again, no answer. Based on feedback from constituents and my own observations, I believe that they are not quarantining. They are simply not coming to school. Truly gifted educators, which Bossier Parish is blessed to have more of than I can count, serve in so many roles for students. They serve as teachers, administrators, coaches, encouragers, and sometimes even surrogate moms and dads. The role that I refuse to ask them to play any longer is the role of contact tracer. I believe, and I know that many of my fellow board members also believe, that it is time for our board to use a common sense approach to address what's best for the education of the students in Bossier Parish schools. I recently attended a meeting where Dr. Cade Brumley was the keynote speaker. He made two statements during his speech that resonated with me. One, attendance is the #1 indicator of student performance. This is common sense. Students are more likely to learn if they show up. His second statement was there is a 15-point difference in proficiency between those students that attend face-to-face instruction and those students that attend virtual instruction. Simply put, those students that show up for face-to-face instruction are more likely to be proficient in the content they are being taught. We must get our students to attend for daily face-to-face instruction to maximize their learning potential and proficiency. I asked for our COVID protocols to be placed on tonight's board agenda. I believe what is best for our students' educational achievement is for them to be in attendance with our teachers for daily face-to-face instruction and the state of Louisiana. Bossier Parish is one of Louisiana's fastest growing parishes and one of Louisiana's best performing school districts. We have also been given some of the highest financial ratings in the state by an independent national rating agency. One of the main reasons I believe our parish is growing so rapidly is the high quality of our school system, and the reason for that is the quality of our employees. On tonight's agenda is a resolution to renew 3 millages for the maintenance and operation of our facilities and pay salaries and benefits for Bossier Parish School Board employees. On April 30th, this resolution to renew those millages will be on the ballot. I ask you to renew your investment in those employees and our district by voting to support that resolution. While serving on this board, I have been entrusted to make decisions about what is best for the constituents of District 5, their families, and Bossier Parish School Board employees. As a husband to a Bossier Parish educator and a father to 3 Bossier Parish students, it is important for me to highlight the fact that every decision that I make for you and your family, I also make it for the people that I love most on this earth. In this new role, I want to reaffirm my commitment to making each decision with my head bowed in prayer and my heart in alignment with Almighty God. As we move forward as a school district, as a parish, as a state, and as a nation, I want to assure you that God has us in the palm of His hand. Please pray for our board, our school system, our state, and our nation as we move forward. Thank you so much. I have no idea how much that sign cost me, but worth every penny. So, all right. Now we call the meeting to order. We need to approve the minutes. Item 1.03, approval of the minutes of special session of the board for January 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Newman and a second by Ms. Brotherton. Please vote. Motion passes. I need an approval of the minutes of the regular session of the board for January 6th, 2022. Looks like that's we're going to approve the agenda in item 1.05, so we'll do that there. Mr. Bullard, was that your motion? Oh, Mr. Slack made the motion. Do I hear a second? Approve the minutes? All right, second by Mr. Dean. Please vote. Motion carries. Before we get to item 1.05, which is approval of the agenda, Mr. Rogers, who is our risk professional, has had some back procedure today. It's difficult for him to sit and stand, and so he has requested that we move item 3.05 up in the agenda, and so I would love to hear a motion to do so. Second. Mr. Bullard made the motion and Mr. Wiggins seconded it. Please vote to move that item up in the agenda. Motion carries. That will now be item 3.01.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. We'll move you right after good news, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
Yes.
you were putting me up here.
Well, I thought that's what we did. It's a rookie mistake.
I'm good, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, sir. So now we need to approve the new agenda as amended. Mr. Bullard makes the motion. Second by Mr. Bertrand. Please vote. Motion carries. Item 2.01, recognition, BPS Good News, presented by Sonia Bales, Public Relations Liaison.
Good evening, President Bass, Superintendent Downey, to all of our school board members and all of our distinguished guests in the audience this evening. Earlier today was easily one of the most exciting days of the year when Superintendent Downey and his team announced the 2021-22 Bossier Parish Students of the Year. We're going to take you along with us for the surprise announcements. A big group of well-wishers descended on the doorsteps of 3 schools to surprise our winners with the good news. And let me just say that this is the highest honor awarded to students at the district level. Each school, of course, chooses its own Student of the Year, and then those students go on to compete for the title of Bossier Parish Student of the Year. So these are the top of the top, if you will. They had to submit writing portfolio, writing samples. They were interviewed by judges, and they were absolutely phenomenal. Our first stop was at Bossier High School's most historic high school, Bossier High School, where Jaden Toussaint is a senior. His future plans are to become a software engineer. He has already been interviewed by Harvard. He's also applied at MIT, Georgia Tech, and Stanford, just to name drop a few. He is obviously well on his way to achieving his dream of being a software engineer, having already taken courses at BPSB, our technical school, earning 30 college credit hours through dual enrollment at Bossier Parish Community College. The entourage then showed up at Benton Middle School, where Ella Sims was named the Bossier Parish Middle School Student of the Year. And she hopes to one day either be an English teacher or an attorney, and we are already lobbying her hard to be a teacher. Her latest accomplishment was being named first chair flute player in the Benton Middle School band. And the group traveled east to surprise our elementary Student of the Year. Christian Willis is in 5th grade and a very proud Houghton Elementary Buccaneer. She has a passion for reading and animals, which will serve her well in the future, where she plans to become a veterinarian. She is an involved leader at her school, where she serves as the treasurer of the Houghton Elementary 4-H Club. She competes on the Destination Imagination team in engineering, and she's also a member on the archery team, and today she hit the bullseye. She also enjoys playing the piano. These 3 exemplary students will now advance to the regional level of the state competition next month. We are so proud of each of them, and we know that they will represent our parish so well. So let's give them a big round of applause. We're going to be recognizing all of our Students of the Year a little bit later after the regional competition. We'll bring them all before our school board so we can introduce them all to you. Well, this afternoon, more of our students were shining bright. Cadets in Parkway's ROTC program were beaming with pride when they made a check presentation for $1,800 to the Salvation Army for its women's and children's shelter. The proceeds were raised at the 10th annual Lakia Rawls Memorial 5K held last month. And Lakia was a Bossier High School graduate who lost her life as the result of domestic violence. Her mother, Victoria Rawls, who works at Houghton Middle School, was also there for the presentation. And then following that check presentation, the students toured the shelter to see firsthand the impact that they are making in the fight against domestic violence. So way to go, Parkway ROTC and their students. Finally this evening, we celebrate a lifetime Bel Air bomber who is, well, the bomb. Jennifer Konovich cannot remember a time that Bel Air Elementary hasn't been a part of her life. She was a student there, walked to school every day, and her dad volunteered every day at the school. That's parental support. Then in 2010, Jennifer had the honor of becoming the school secretary, and she was able to work alongside her dad for the last year and a half of his life. Mrs. Konovich will tell you that she is living her dream job and says that she and her husband even joke about the salary of her living her dream job. She left a lucrative management position in financial planning to become school secretary. Why, you ask? Well, because as a student, she says she always admired the people in the office. And she loves registration, bookkeeping, helping parents, overseeing snack shop, planning Teacher Appreciation Week, the luncheons, and that list goes on and on and on and on. But it's no wonder that her colleagues call her the backbone of Bel Air. Victoria Fletcher says she is the glue that holds us all together. Jennifer goes above and beyond to make the staff at Bel Air feel loved and appreciated. Every year, I think there is no way that she will top the previous year's Teacher Appreciation Week, but then she does it even better. puts more enthusiasm and love into her job than she does, adds Jalen Wooten. And Assistant Principal Shelley Bibb echoes those sentiments, saying Mrs. Konovich is the facilitator of all things, planning games, acquiring prizes, making the staff feel extra special. We would be lost without her. She's even the reason that Alicia Colson is now the principal at Bel Air. Because Ms. Colson told me that when I interviewed for Bel Air Assistant Principal 9.5 years ago, I had decided before I arrived for the interview that I would know if this was the school for me by the demeanor of the secretary. I walked in the door and was immediately greeted with a cheerful voice and smile. The secretary was on a ladder, painting the front office in the middle of her summer vacation. She struck up a conversation, and I knew I wanted the job before I even met the principal. That pretty much tells you what you need to know about Jennifer Konovich. While her legion of fans will say that this honor is long overdue, we are so very proud tonight to honor Jennifer Konovich as our first Gold Star winner of 2022. Jennifer, would you come forward? Cowbell and standing ovation and all. I want to invite our partners from Bossier Federal Credit Union to come forward. Emma Eckendall and Jill Valentine is having photography duties today, but she has another special presentation.
Every time I come to do these, I take a little time to think of what I would reference when on a given year award. And I think that as a Bossier Parish product myself, I know that these schools run with so many different areas contributing their absolute best. One of those areas being the school secretary is undoubtedly just a vital part of the team. And I don't know if you know, but we looked at the nominations and we were flooded with so many nominations speaking about how you are the heart of Bel Air. And so on behalf of Bossier Federal Credit Union, we want to congratulate you on being the January 2022, that's the year random, Gold Star Award winner. Congratulations.
Bossier Schools partners with Caldwell Banker Gosley for the Award of Excellence for those who go above and beyond, who show passion, perseverance, integrity in all that they do. And you certainly display all of that and much, much more. So it is our honor to present you with this Award of Excellence medallion for 2021-22.
But I do have to say that I do have the best job ever. Like, this is the best job ever. But I'm so blessed to be at Bel Air. I know all schools are amazing, but that staff at Bel Air is the best. Ms. Colson, Ms. Bim, they're the two hardest working people I've ever seen. And during this COVID time, like, they stayed positive. Our teachers were positive. There was a teacher in the office today in tears because kids are being quarantined and how is she going to get them prepared. So it's that love and that dedication. It's just, it's an amazing place to be. And I'm the one who should be given the Gold Star. So thank y'all very much. I'm very honored.
One last thing that I'll add is that Ms. Colson said if you think it's the principal that runs the school, you're wrong. It's the school secretary. As the child of an elementary school secretary, former school secretary, I agree. She always said if you want to know something, whatever's happening at the school, ask the secretary. Congratulations, it could not be more deserved. Jennifer Konovich, our January Gold Star winner. And Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Bales. I appreciate it. That concludes the ceremonial part of our meeting. If you brought some special guests or came for that, we'll give you 2 minutes to leave if you'd like. Oh, y'all are taking the cowbell with you? Rogers, welcome.
Mr. President, congratulations. Mr. Vice President, congratulations. Mr. Downey, board members, good to be with you tonight. I do appreciate you letting me jump up there on the agenda. One of the reasons why I did not want this to wait is the insurance company is in our negotiations. We have a little over $2.1 million that they're going to send us as additional actual cash value on our claim, so that will be up to a little over $8.1 million that we've been paid so far. And the remarkable part that I want to focus on is, I mean, everyone talks about teamwork, but this has really been good teamwork. The insurer continues to work with us. Of course, we've had to use persuasion at times, like you always do when you're trying to get money out of somebody. That's part of the conversations. Mr. Rowland has done an excellent job at spearheading our committee, say an ad hoc committee, I would suppose, that where we have tried to manage the conversations with the insurer, and of course they're doing all the heavy lifting. Mr. Roger did a lot of help. Ms. Douglas does a lot of help. Ms. Bamberg does a lot of help, and I've even wrangled the superintendent into one or two meetings. So this is just another step toward progress. I wanted to explain to you that on this particular proof of loss that we're doing, we're still not even agreeing on the total damage. So the insurance company is paying us this knowing that we still have to agree to the final number. And part of that is because we still have a few bids that have not been let and awarded. And of course, to know a final number, we really need to know what those bids are. So my anticipation is this will be our last proof of loss on an unagreed actual cash value basis. I think our next one will probably be once the bids have been let and they have been awarded. We have a final accounting of what is expected. Then I think they will present a proof of loss with an anticipated replacement cost value. And that will probably be the next thing that we will ask you to consider. On this particular proof of loss, I just want you to be assured I sent this to Mr. Evan Alvarez, your counsel, on this particular thing. I keep him in the loop. Mr. Rowland does as well. He's familiar with this and has agreed that there is no reason we would not want to sign this. Quite frankly, I just want to get it going so that Ms. Bamberg can send them wiring instructions and we can get that rolling. I would expect a couple of weeks before we actually receive this money. We're probably going to be in between, I know we're going to be over 10 million. I don't know how close to 11 million will be. That remains to be seen based on the final bids, but that is pretty much in line with where our gut feeling was that this claim would be. And I am happy to report that I made you a lot of promises about I thought this insurer would stand up and do the right thing because we've been with them a long time. And I can tell you that I'm satisfied, and I think that when we had any log jams that had to be broken in the conversations, based on my visits with the carrier and our group meetings, I think our problem is their engineering consultant, not the insurance company. And so I think we have that going well now. So that's probably too much explanation, but my recommendation would be that you authorize the superintendent to initial and sign this form where indicated. And I think Mr. Geist is here prepared to notarize Mr. Downey's signature if the board approves. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bamberg and a second by Ms. Darden. Please vote.
Sir, the reason why I said Mr. Bamberg would be sending the wiring instructions is I asked for that opportunity and she denied authorization for me to do that. She runs a tight ship.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you all. I really appreciate your patience through this and we'll get through it.
And I hope your back feels better.
Thank you. It's called a little attention right now, but it's gonna get better.
Go home and put your feet up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 3.02, request Benton Naming Committee recommendation presented by Jason Rowland, Assistant Superintendent of Administration.
Thank you, President Bass, Superintendent Downey, board members. I also want to thank Doug Rogers as the work he's done a yeoman's job in helping us with the Hailstone claim, and he stays in contact with our insurer daily, and he's just done a fantastic job. Okay, the Benton High Naming Committee met on Tuesday, January 18th at 3 p.m. in at the central office. The committee members were Brother Doyle Adams, Jeremy Alford, and Robert Lawrence as community members. Staff personnel were Coach Tim Cram, Ms. Michelle France, and Principal Terry Howe, and board member representative is Ms. Tammy Smith. And so the naming committee has came to a unanimous decision. They would like to, with board approval, of course, to name the field at Benton High Tiger Stadium Paul Newman Dwayne Mason Field. In short, it will be Newman Mason Field at Benton High Stadium. Tonight, we do have with us Coach Dwayne Mason's daughter, Miss Angela Mason McCullough. She is a teacher at Benton High School, and she is with us. The Newman family were not able to be with us tonight, but we certainly want to offer this to you and ask the pleasure of the board.
Have a motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Bullard. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Mr. Rowland, would it be appropriate if the family's here, would they like to say anything, or the daughter? Or
It would be very appropriate. I don't think Angela wants to.
My daddy could not be here. He has COPD, so we thought it was a risk for him with COVID to be here. But there is not a bigger Benton Tiger football fan than my daddy. He spent all his years coaching at Benton High School, and then went on to be the principal at Bossier Achievement Center when they started there. And he still was at Benton Tiger football games until he was unable in the last couple of years. So we're thrilled and he is thrilled. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Item 3.03, request approval of revision of Bossier Parish School Board policies is recommended by Forethought Consulting and Council, presented by Jason Rowland, Assistant Superintendent of Administration.
Thank you, President Bass, Superintendent Downey, Chairman Bamberg. Spoke to Mr. Bamberg about how he would like to proceed with this, and so we're going to put these policies together. And I sent you the information last week about what the subtle changes were, so if it's okay, I'd like to put them all together for you, and then we can go with, we can take any questions and discuss them as needed. This is the last policy update for 2021. I know you're glad about that, and so well, let's get to the first one, Act 102, Policy DJE Purchasing. The change here is that the consulting services were added to procurements for which a reverse auction could be used if needed. This policy allows for consulting services to be included in this policy. And again, that's the only change that was made to the purchasing policy. Any questions? Policy DJED, bids and quotations. The main change in this policy was to revise the language to remove the description competitive online solicitation process. That's the only change in the policy. Any questions? The next four policies comes out of Act 275. I would like to group these together. Policy GBRHA, sabbatical leave, GBRIB, sick leave, IHAD, parent conference, and JG, student welfare. All of these policies, the simple change was this. We changed the word from guidance counselor to school counselor. Any questions about those four? The last policy I want to bring to you is the completion of Act 470. If you remember back in the fall, we talked about some things we needed to do. We put our discipline committee together, and we met and we looked at the revisions that needed to be made. The revisions that are going to be made to the student conduct policy are simply this. We had just some subtle changes. Our council recommended one sentence be changed, and it is this: every teacher and every other school employee shall be authorized to hold every student accountable, that's the word, his or her, for his or her behavior in school and playground, etc. The discipline committee met, and we've developed concepts that allow our principals and schools to work under an umbrella that will give them latitude in how they deal with students. We have expedited the process from minor infractions up to major infractions with interventions and consequences that follow each one of these based on our council's recommendation to us. The progressive discipline procedures have been added, where they were suggested to be added to the student handbook. We have a copy, a draft of that. It will be found in the parish part of the student handbook, and pending board approval can be found online after tonight's meeting. Any questions? Pleasure report.
We do have one public comment. Jackie Lansdale wants to speak on this item. Welcome, Ms. Lansdale.
Thank you so much, President Bass. Welcome to the city.
Thank you.
And President Bass, and ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Superintendent Downing and community members, I am Jackie Lansdale. I'm the president of the Red River United. We are hearing that survivable rights in Dozier Parish are in jeopardy. And before I tell you why that is so wrong, I want to make sure that everybody there that are not in the education community know exactly what a survivable right is. It's something in law. And it's something a teacher has to earn as a permanent teacher. You have to be teaching in a district without any interruption in service for 3 years to get one semester for either study, where you would have to do 6 graduate hours or 9 undergraduate hours, and it had to pertain to the subject that you were teaching, or it could be a medical sabbatical. After 6 years, you could get 2 semesters. And once you do those things, you must come back to the district, and you have to teach for, if it's 1 semester, it's 1 semester, or 2 for 2. Now, what I wanted to say to you about that, we were really flabbergasted. I heard you say over and over again how great your teachers are. And the fact is, in your family-friendly district, and and this just kind of just flies in the face of that. You have a young teaching population. We've looked at your numbers many times. You have a young teaching population. And young teachers have what? Children. They have babies. And it's hard. And I'm just going to tell you for myself, I can remember that when I had a bachelor's degree, I thought, I got to up my game, if I'm going to go anywhere. And I had 3 children. And it was hard. But God has a sense of humor, because I became pregnant with a 4th child right in the middle of that. But I did it. I managed. I got through. I got that graduate degree. And I stand before you as the president of the largest organization, public union organization in the state of Louisiana, and the only regional organization in the state of Louisiana. And I wanted to just tell you, of those teachers out there, we ask you to rethink that. Because you're going to make them make some hard choices. And it may not be the choice you want. So we ask you to just rethink that, because from our perspective, we know how hard rights are to secure. And to regain a right is even harder. And from our perspective, as an organization, that is not something that we can take lightly. So I do ask you to rethink that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lansdale. Any comment from the board? I'll entertain a motion on this item. I'm sorry, who moved? All right, Mr. Bamberg made a motion to approve. Have a second? Second. Have a second for Mr. Newman. Please vote. Correct. It was a vote to accept the changes of that resolution, or those changes of policy. Vote passes. Item 3.04, request notification of opportunity for public comment related to Bossier Parish request to Louisiana Department of Education in accordance with Act 3 of Early Childhood Education, presented by Kim Duncan, Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network Coordinator. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, President Bass, Superintendent and board members. I am coming tonight to you to provide the opportunity for these open comments. I just want to give you a little bit of information about what the Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network is and what we're doing. I am representing the Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network, and our partners consist of Bossier Head Start, Bossier Early Head Start, all of the LA4 programs in the public school system, and all of the early learning centers in the parish, which to some of you may be considered child care centers. Through those partners, we have a total of 161, as you can see on the slide, 161 classrooms. Out of that, and these are all ages birth through age 4. In November, the department released the report cards for schools as well as the early childhood performance profiles. Lead agency profiles were not published at this time due to COVID waivers. Therefore, our current quality ratings score is still the same as it was in 2018-19, even though our 2021 score improved slightly. Our overall score is a 5.22 out of a 7. Now for the reason that I'm here tonight. Chapter 709, Part B of Bulletin 140 requires that lead agencies collaborate with all publicly funded programs within the network and allow for public comment on proposed funding requests prior to submission. So we're asking for public comment during this meeting. The Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network will coordinate and submit a community-wide application of the state of early childhood public funding. Our requests are as follows. LA4, the school system classrooms, will remain the same as it was in 2021-2022 school year, which is 130 publicly funded seats. We have one NSECB classroom, and that will be funded as requested. Early learning centers will be allowed to request additional seats. We currently have 12 seats for that type of funding. This year, we're also going to apply for birth through 3 seats. Now, this was a new funding source for us. In the past, last year, we weren't able to, we did apply for it, but we weren't able to get that funding because we were not a Ready Start network. Part of being a Ready Start network is the network has to commit to a few things. The first of which is to create a blueprint, which is just an overview of our goals and strategies. We have to commit to developing and implementing a coalition of community leaders, a form of governance to guide decision making, and also some local funding support. And we have done those things. You will see on the next, I think it's the next slide, there you go. The mission of the Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network is that our partners will provide safe, nurturing, child-centered, quality educational experiences with support, which support individual, intellectual, and social growth and development. Our vision is that all Bossier Early Childhood Community Network partners are committed to prepare children ages birth through 5 for success in all future educational and life experiences. So these are our goals for this coming year. Number 1, to increase community awareness of Bossier Parish early childhood programs. Another part of my job is I work for a child care resource and referral agency, and we get calls all the time from parents looking for what are their options in early childhood. So we want to be able to provide more information to the community through a variety of strategies. Our second goal is to establish a formal local governance for the Bossier Early Childhood Ready Start Network that can help us to promote and support that mission. Number 3 is to create and implement a coordinated enrollment process that is user-friendly and inclusive of all families in all Bossier early childhood programs. So families not only know where to look, but they know how to apply for those. Number 4 is to increase access to high-quality early childhood programs for children ages birth through 3 specifically, through grading public and private funds. But before I ask for open comments, I do have one good news item that I want to share with you. We met with Superintendent Downey and a group from the Community Foundation to discuss some of the private funding that we could raise locally. And through that, the Community Foundation committed to raising $50,000 for the early childhood efforts in Bossier Parish. They have already raised $25,000 of that. Now, those funds will be matched by the state. So, dollar for dollar matching funds for that $50,000. That money will go to support tuition-free seats for eligible children ages birth through 3 in Type 3 early learning programs. So we're very excited about that opportunity as well. So any public comment?
We don't have anyone that has signed up to comment on this item. Does the board have any comments on this?
Thank you for the update of this information and what a valuable program it is, because we know the earlier the children have exposure and learning, the better they'll succeed. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Item 3.05, request approval of a resolution ordering and calling a special election to be held in the parish-wide school district of the parish of Bossier, state of Louisiana, on Saturday, April 30th, 2022, for the purpose of authorizing the renewal of the levy and collection of 1, a 10 mills, 10-year ad valorem tax for the purpose of giving additional support to public schools by funding salaries and benefits for employees of the Bossier School Board of the parish of Bossier, state of Louisiana. 2, a 10 mills, 10-year ad valorem tax for the purpose of giving additional support to public elementary and secondary schools by funding the improvement, maintenance, and operation of public school buildings in Bossier Parish. And 3, a 26.5 mills, 10-year ad valorem tax for the purpose of giving additional support to public elementary and secondary schools in said district by providing funds for the payment of salaries and benefits directly related to said salaries of teachers and other employees of the parish school system, and further making application to the State Bond Commission for consent and authorization to hold the aforesaid election, and further providing for other matters in connection therewith. Presented by Nisha Bamberg, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening. You pretty much just did my job for me. Tonight we're asking the board to go ahead and take the next step in moving forward with the April 30th election. And so tonight we're asking the board to officially approve the resolution to move forward with that election of the renewal of those 3 villages.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Darby. That's the first one I heard. The second by Mr. Bertrand. And we do have a request for public comment on this item from David Crockett. Mr. Crockett, are you here?
I am.
Okay.
I'll hurry, I'm a long way away.
Welcome, Mr. Crockett.
Thank you, and welcome, and glad to see you in the seat, and thank you for serving, and Superintendent Downey, thank you for being here. I just have a couple of real quick questions, and I don't know, I haven't seen anything in the public about this, so I couldn't quite tell if the 26.5 mils was going to be an additional millage. It's the renewal. Okay, that's good to know. And the other questions that I would have is, when are we going to have an opportunity, like are there going to be public forums? And I think Mr. Bamberg told me that there might be some opportunities in the future where at least they'll be present, where we can ask questions about this and how it supports the budget. And then the third thing is, it would be nice if we would see some publicity. We're going to have it probably anyway, because of course we want people to support it publicly, but where we can get articles, whether it's supporting pay raises and things like that, and what we see as the vision in the future for what it supports. And that's my general comment.
Right. Mr. Crockett, I know we did have a press conference when we first announced this. We've had this at the last few board meetings. I know it's been advertised in our...
I didn't see an article. Is there an article that you think I can reference on the street?
Again, I'm not sure of the article, but I know it's been in our, Bossier Press Tribune.
Okay.
Nisha, correct me, I believe it's been there for at least 30 days, is that right?
I think that was an announcement, right?
We did the announcement, but we've also, we sent out emails to the employees, and we're gonna continue to, we do have, significant plans to continue to make it more public. We were waiting until, now, really.
And I guess the question would be, is there gonna be an open forum where we can have a town hall or anything to discuss it?
Mr. Crockett.
That's all.
Okay, I know Ms. Bales shook her head, so she did say yes. We're gonna have plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, to discuss this.
I know, it's a long time, but I appreciate it. I just thank you, and of course, we all love our teachers.
Thank you very much. All right, item 3.0. We have to vote in order to approve this. So do I hear a motion? I had a motion by Ms. Darby and a second by Mr. Bertrand. Please vote. Oh, and comment, Ms. Brotherton?
I just want to say one thing that we need to stress again. This is a renewal. This is nothing new. This is what we have now. We're just asking to be renewed. So it's nothing new, no new taxes. It's just renewal. I think we need to stress that a whole lot.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brotherton. I didn't see the vote tally. Approved unanimous? Okay, it's approved unanimously. Item 3.06, request possible amendment of Bossier Parish School Board COVID-19 screening protocols. I asked for this to be put on the agenda to give board members an opportunity to comment, have back and forth, vote on this. I was very clear in my opening remarks where I stood on it, but I want to give other board members an opportunity to speak. Mr. Bamber.
This is something that this board has been charged with from the beginning, been unbelievably some hard decisions that we've had to make in the past concerning masking, how do we handle COVID. We want to keep our students and our teachers and our employees safe as possible. And today, I think we've done everything that we've been charged to do as school board members. But we are charged with and I just wrote down some notes here, so it'll probably be all over the place, but our main agenda here is to educate children and to do that in the safest manner that we can as a school board and school system. So right now, as we look at it across this parish, we're not educating children to the point that I feel like is the Bossier way. And that's due to the absences of many of our students that have COVID, many of our employees that have COVID. But there's also probably, I would say, a 4-to-1 ratio of students that are going home and employees that are going home because they are close contact quarantine based on the policy the way it reads now. We're talking about, I think last Friday it might have been north of 2,000 students in our parish that were at home that did not have a COVID positive test. 80 teachers that were at home that did not have a positive COVID test. I understand that some of those may turn into a positive COVID test. With this variant, I think it's probably the only time in the world I would quote Dr. Fauci. I'm sorry about that for some, but Dr. Fauci said he really feels like 85% of the world is going to have this variant at some point over the next couple of months. So I think a lot of parishes are all struggling with this same issue of trying to figure out how do we teach the students, how do we keep face-to-face. Some of them have given up. Some of them have gone to a virtual arena trying to educate their children through virtual. And I was also at the meeting with Mr. Bass, where our state superintendent went through the data points to show how important, and I believe this board has shown that in the past, that we feel the same way about how important it is for our children to be in number of cases across different states. And I looked at different states that handle the coronavirus, and their policies are drastically different. So obviously I looked at Florida. Florida's wide open. They're not mask mandating. They're not, they call their Governor DeSantis, so because there is no criteria in that state that has anything to do with coronavirus. The other state I looked at was California. Okay, California, you have to show a vaccination card. This is not a vaccination speech, but you have to show a vaccination card and wear a mask everywhere you go. Some of the schools are completely virtual, but it's as locked down as a state as you can see. Louisiana is somewhere in the middle of that, right? We're this board in our particular section has, every time the CDC has loosened any guidelines, or the state has loosened any guidelines, we have been right on top of things to say, let's institute that, let's put that into our system, let's do what we can to try to keep face-to-face learning the best way that you can. And the crazy thing is when you look at those, you could print the pictures of those three states, and you could stack them up and hold them up to the light, and you couldn't tell a difference in the graphs. So it does not matter, and the way that the data points that I got, it does not matter if you're wide open and have not one single rule in your state that has to do with coronavirus, or you lock your state down to the nth degree. The coronavirus with the Omicron variant looks exactly the same. Right now, I'll get back to my notes. Teachers are well and at home and not teaching our students. Students are well and at home and not getting face-to-face instruction. Some return to school immediately to get re-quarantined for another 5 days. I have a friend, one of my best friends in this world, called me yesterday as we're going through this conversation and thinking about this thing. He said, you know what, my child has been in school for 2 days and 4 hours since the beginning of this year. 2 days. I don't know how many days we're in school, but we're 2 weeks in, 2.5 weeks in at this point, and he's been in face-to-face education for 2 days and 4 hours because he got called 4 hours into the day to say, your child's in close contact quarantine, you need to take the house for 5 more days. Students, by speaking to our state superintendent, students are getting further and further behind. Parents are still going to work with children at home. Our parents have to take time and stay home with their children that aren't sick. Omicron has proven, and maybe this is arguable, but this is the information that I've been listening to on the news. It doesn't care if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. You're still susceptible to get it. You're still susceptible to transmit it. There is data to support, if you're vaccinated, you're going to have a better outcome, right? But they're not even saying in the national media now that the vaccines even stop the coronavirus spread, that it just improves the outcomes. And most of the kids in our system and our people, our employees, they are only isolating from school. Now we have no control over that once they leave the school. We just know they can't be back at school. But if you eat lunch out during the middle of the day, you see kids everywhere. And there's 2,000 of them out, and they're having to be with their parents. So their parents are saying, hey, hang out with me, we want to lunch, whatever, but they're going to church. If you're in a small group in a church, I can promise you, you have kids that are close contact quarantine in schools in our Bossier parish. So I just, and there's some controversy around this. The last thing I want to do as a school board member, as a father, is put a person, student, parent, employee, anyone in danger. But when I see the curves of the two most different states in this country, the way they handle coronavirus, and they line up identical, I just kind of wonder what kind of effect you can have on this, no matter how you treat it. stop close contact quarantining students and employees and requiring them to stay home from school.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Bamberg.
Would you repeat that?
BYL student, stay here late. That student and employees, and it doesn't matter how the verbiage goes to me, but basically the student employees that are COVID positive or experiencing symptoms stay home from school for 5 days, and that we stop close contact quarantining students and require them to stay home, and requiring them to stay home from school. No longer quarantining close contact quarantining students or employees.
Okay, yes, ma'am, Ms. Darby.
As a board member, I took an oath.
Ms. Darby, who you wearing?
I too took an oath to represent the boys and girls and the community as a whole. And in this instance, and I heard you say that you said that the students are well. You see them being at home. That speaks for itself. They're well because they were quarantined. I don't believe that they would be well put in that environment. It is my opinion, and I do not feel that I should vote yes on this recommendation, because if I do, I would be ignoring CDC, I would be ignoring legal, scientists, and research fact findings. Now, the word fact findings means the discovery and establishment of the facts of an issue. The recommendations and requirements have been researched and studied and is based on truth, not speculation. I will never knowingly vote for something that could potentially cause harm or death to our students, faculty, and staff, or put this school system in a legal bind. To vote for this would be defying and ignoring medical advice of CDC regulations, legal minds, researchers, and other professionals that are knowledgeable on this topic. Please let the record show I cannot and I will not vote for anything that could harm this school system physically, financially, or legally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Wiggins.
I will also have a statement.
Okay.
As I voiced it well, I'll be more concise. Not today, tonight, or tomorrow. I will personally do nothing that might bring pain, suffering, or sorrow. The proposed action tonight is medically in doubt. If there's any chance it might harm our children, our employees, you can count me out. I gotta know. Thank you.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you. I just had a clarification question. Did Mr. Bamberg, your resolution include at-home close contact, like homebound? Could we have something put in there about that? I think that's an additional.
I'm unclear.
So you have close contact, you have positives, you have symptomatic, but you have at-home close contacts, whereas a family
10-day class if you have one in your house, because you have to wait their 5 days plus the 5 days after to make sure that you don't have it. Is that correct? So, you know, to me that I would prefer the families try to quarantine their children inside their own home and stay away from them. Put them upstairs, put them in a different room. You know, that's what we did at my house. My children had COVID last year. We quarantined in our own home. And, you know, they came out and wore masks, and we said goodnight to them, and they went to their room, back to their room, and that was about it. So, I'm open for that, but I believe that that's another 10-day deal that we're trying to stop from happening.
Okay, so.
Mr. President.
One second, Mr. Downing. Okay, Mr. Wiggins.
I understand Mr. Snowden was here from Home Security. I'd like to ask him to speak, if you would allow him, please. Mr. Snowden.
I'm sorry, I didn't know y'all's procedure in being able to speak to the group. My name's Ian Snowden. I'm the emergency manager for Bossier Parish. I work for the police jury, and one of my jobs as emergency manager is to collect data from the Department of Health, Louisiana Office of Public Health, and also our emergency plan states for our parish to follow some of their guidance. So what I do is I get that guidance and I pass it through to the leaders of the parish, and I've got like 160 something people on my email list, and I don't know how many people get it, but a lot of people at the school board do get it. And what it's for is for different things, for anywhere from disaster recovery to like COVID mitigation. Like what I'm here to talk about tonight is this COVID deal. So basically, the information I get from the Department of Health and from the Region 7 Hospital Coordinator is to let our parish officials know what's going on with COVID inside our community. And so that's what I'm here to tell you about. I got a little bit of information for you. Basically, the facts are that we're appear to be at the peak of a pandemic. As of today, the state started putting our parish numbers back on the dashboard. We're at 31,401 cases, and sadly to say we're at 425 deaths. Yesterday, 407 COVID positive patients were in the Region 7 hospitals. There's 34 hospitals, 22 of them have COVID patients in them. 16 of the hospitals that have COVID in them are in the Shreveport-Bossier area, with the majority of the patients, like I said, are in the Shreveport-Bossier area hospitals. The hospitals are at the highest capacity they've been in all the COVID spikes since March of 2020. The staffs are short, the ER and rooms are full. The EMS has wait times a lot of times. When they go into the ERs, they're having to wait, call it wall time. And so they're sitting on the walls waiting for a room to open or for somebody to be able to come look at them, because the paramedic or the EMT can't leave that person. They have to stay with that person. Sometimes it's up to 2 hours that we've been reported from EMS, from our Hospital 7 region coordinator. The highest community spread is greater than 100 people that are sick per 100,000 population, and we're over that. For the past 10 days, we've been over 400 people reported with COVID case incidents. So I thought that was important for you to understand the seriousness and how much COVID is in the community, so you can make an informed decision, because it's part of our job at BPSB is to give the leaders the information so they can have proper situational awareness, so they can make their best judgments they can for their employees and for the citizens of the parish.
Okay. One second. Mr. Backhouse and then Mr. Bamber. Sure.
Ian, the figures I have no doubt about, I'm sure those figures are accurate. Do you have any breakdown on the age of all of those patients, or whether they were contacted at school?
We don't. Well, the Office of Public Health has that, and I suggest y'all reach out to them or to whoever manages your health care within your
school system, your medical director could answer those questions.
I believe we have reached out to them. I appreciate your information.
Wait, one more second, Mr. Bamberger, you had a question?
And this is just something that I've heard for a very long time, and maybe you can shed some light on it. First of all, thank you for your information. That's the kind of stuff that we need to push back and forth to make some decisions. But one, when we're talking about hospitalized patients, is that patients that are in the hospital that have COVID? Yes, or are they in the hospital because they have COVID?
They're in the hospital because of they have COVID.
So it's COVID. That's why they're there, is because they came in with COVID, not because they came in
COVID only versus
right.
I
Secondary.
mean, do they count a person who goes in with the flu and they test and they get COVID? Do they say, oh, that's a COVID case?
If it's reported on the numbers that I get from that Region 7 hospital coordinator, and it's the 407 COVID positive patients, they're being treated for COVID. And sometimes,
I guess the question would be, is it only COVID? Or
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't really know.
I've heard always that, if we're 28% positive in our area and there's a motor vehicle accident, then you got a 28% chance that one of those people that getting treated for a broken leg would have COVID, and that counts as a COVID case. I don't know that.
You'd have to ask the hospitals that. I just know that Region 7 hospital coordinator information and information from Louisiana Office of Public Health that I get is what I've been told is COVID positive patients only.
Okay.
They're being treated, and that's what their chief complaint is something to do with COVID.
Okay.
And there's many different problems.
Okay. And the second question would be, I've also heard that ER visits are skyrocketing because maybe there's some people that don't have insurance that they can't be turned away to get COVID tests and be looked at for COVID.
I'm not sure about that. I know that they did a press release to try to keep people from going to the hospital that had COVID, so they wouldn't jam up the rooms and all that. I'm not familiar with what you're asking.
Thank you for your information. I've heard that, and I said maybe you could shed some light.
That'd be a question for the hospitals.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Snowgrove, my question is, you said you had an email list. I know that I'm not on it. How often does that email come out? I guess would be my first question.
Okay, so I've been doing this for 7 years, almost 8 years now for the police jury. And so it was a small list. It was just a Parish Emergency Management Advisory Committee. And so then we realized more people need the information because we just created the office. And so it's grown. So people have asked me to add them to the list, and basically it's my boss, who's the police jury administrator. I work for 3 people. I'm employed by the Bossier Police Jury, but I work for an executive council, which is the Mayor Tommy Chandler and Sheriff Whittington. And then, of course, my boss is the police jury administrator or the police jury president. I kind of list all 4 of them. So that's, if they tell me to put somebody on the list, that's who I put on that list. If they have the need to know that information, and I'll be glad to add anybody on the list.
Again, I guess my question is, how often does that email come out?
It's we have a weekly conference call with the weather. I mean, it's like weekly, and then that's a weather call. But on the COVID, it's I generate Wednesday. The governor's office publishes the new data from the Office of Public Health on a website dashboard, and I recover that data and I push that information out so everybody has situational awareness. The people that are making decisions, like Mitch Downey, Sheriff Whittington, the mayor, Mayor Hall, the mayor of Benton, those people get the information. I mean, there's like 150-something people I can provide you with names.
That's fine. My follow-up question, is any board member that's on the stage on that email list?
Just the superintendent of the schools, Mr. Downey is the only one that I sent it to, like Roland, sent it to Adam Johnson. I mean, there's a ton of people, and there may be more on the school board that I sent it to, but...
And so that email's been going out once a week since COVID started 2 years ago?
Pretty much, yes, sir. Okay. And it wasn't, that email is designed so
the leaders who make decisions for employers, that are basically the employer, to make an informed decision and be situationally aware of what's going on.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a request. I think that the 12 of us would be considered leaders of our school district. I'd very much like it if you wouldn't mind including the 12 of us on that email,
Can you get
please.
somebody from the school board signing bills or somebody?
Yeah, I'm sure we can do that.
Link up an email to give me everybody's
Sure,
name.
that'd be great.
As long
Ms.
as-
Sonia, can you handle that for us? Thank you so much. Any other questions?
One time comment,
Yes.
Mr. President. I've been on this board in excess of 20 years. I've seen issues come and go, serious, frivolous, and everything else. But never have we had an issue that deals with health, life, and death. I implore board members to not make this decision tonight to change the protocols. Leave it as it is until this thing clears. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Mr. Downey?
I had a conversation yesterday and decided to try to gather some information because I know that there's frustration over what we've been dealing with for over 20 months. So I reached out to 5 different doctors and the fire chief of Bossier City and asked them about suspending the quarantine for close contacts and asked them what their opinion would be on that. And the opinions were similar, but the one request was don't do this during a spike. And so my opinion, based on feedback from the medical community of Bossier Parish, is that this may be a conversation after the spike is over, but according to the request made by our doctors that serve us and our families, they would appreciate no additional pressure based on a decision to remove the quarantine during the spike.
Mr. Downey, I hate to ask a question. Those doctors, if those students are not actually quarantining, so they're not going home and staying the 5 days and not leaving their house, do those doctors feel that that quarantine is effective?
I didn't ask that question. I asked what impact it would have on the local health community, and that was their response.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes, sir. Mr. Backhouse.
Coach, our rule is if you come in contact 3 feet or less for a time of 15 minutes, you were sent home for 5 days. Is that right?
Unless you're vaccinated.
Ma'am?
Could you speak to that?
Unless you're vaccinated.
No, but. Unless you're vaccinated.
6 feet. 6 feet or less.
6 feet or less. 6 feet without a mask for 15 minutes or more. Yes, sir.
Unless you're vaccinated.
Why do we send them for 5 days if they don't have symptoms?
Amen.
Is 5 days the general rule with these doctors?
Well, and Mr. Rowland has been involved in this since day one, but the consideration is that you become contagious 2 days prior to symptoms or up to 2 days prior to symptoms. And then there's an opportunity for the symptoms to resolve themselves by day 5, but they are not to return if they still have symptoms, day 6 or day 7. You can add to that, Mr. Rowland, or clarify.
I'm saying without symptoms, 5 days without symptoms. The calls I get, the emails I get are, how come the parents can't decide on their child going to school if they have no symptoms? They stay home 5 days. I was told just yesterday by somebody that his grandchild has been out 3 times, times 5 days, never been sick. That's the question I'm having. I agree with what's been said about if people are sick. Can we quarantine them for 2 days to see if they're going to have symptoms? Can we limit down just a little bit? I don't know.
I think that's a conversation that we can definitely have.
the things that we have written and decided were given to us by the Louisiana Department of Health, and it comes straight off of the information that is provided to us. And when the CDC decided to reduce the quarantine time to 5 days, of course it took some time to matriculate down to the system, but the LDH did adopt that, and then they passed it on to school systems and created a working document for us of what we call a decision tree. So we've taken all these things and we've tried to write them in ways that are easy for our employees to follow. The 5 days from the studies that I've done, that decision was made because the Omicron variant will show up within 5 days instead of 10. You'll either know you have it within 5 days or you won't. Of course, we return on day 6, but we continue to mitigate those close contacts. Do have to mitigate for an additional 5 days by wearing a mask when they come back. So that's from what I've been told. From what I've heard.
Coach, I understand, and I certainly think everybody in here has good intentions and wants the best for our children. There's no doubt. But even my granddaughter was sent home. One of my granddaughters was sent home for 5 days, no symptoms. She goes back the 6th day, and the principal says, but you cannot participate in softball. Now, what I read was close contact sports, wrestling, and basketball, and that you would discuss in the future baseball, softball. I mean, this girl was getting punished 5 days out of school and no softball, and not sick at all.
And I agree, and that's why we wrote it into our policy. Coach Young and I talked about that. We wanted to deal with the 2 sports that we know are what we call close contact sports where you come in contact, and that's basketball and wrestling. And now the LHSA has allowed each LEA the right to make a decision as to what we do. Now they've identified what those sports are, what are individual sports or what are contact sports. They have identified those, but they've also allowed us the privilege to decide what we're going to do with what I call outdoors, and when we get back outdoors. And so softball, baseball, track, and of course the spring sports of golf and tennis don't really fall into that. But that's why we wanted to discuss that later as we got close to that. So we haven't necessarily sent out anything that limits them at this time.
Well, I certainly understand, but come January, whenever it may be, the Department of Health is not going to be talking to their constituents in their district, asking for their vote to be on the school board. And who they're going to be looking at is the decisions we make. And we have, I got one, thank you. I'll pay you later. But, boy, I lost my thought. That's what happens when you get old.
Ms. Darby.
I worked with a couple of epidemiologists, and the question that you asked was that sometimes they don't show any signs. What if you sent that student back to class? They're not showing any at that time, but they are positive. Well, now they've contaminated all the other students. So it's very important to quarantine. That is very important. That's the bottom line. I mean,
so you go 5 days with no symptoms, but still be sick.
I've had right now. We've had families that have been sick. One individual carried it, no symptom whatsoever. They were the carrier.
I understand that, and I do agree with some of that. But what I don't agree with is keep sending kids home time after time after time up to 15 days and not being sick at all. That's where I'm having trouble. That's the answers I'm having to come up with to tell these citizens.
I would prefer sending my child than sending them to the graveyard.
Yes, that's a good point, but does that parent have the opportunity to decide for their children? No. Somebody in Baton Rouge is making that decision, not us. And that's the problem on it. That's railroads statistics do not signify whether it's a third grader or whether it's a 70-year-old person. And so I have a little trouble with those figures. That's all
Mr. Newman, just clarification, Mr. Bamberg's motion made it to where it's not a mandatory, but it still be the option of the parent.
If the parent,
Just wanted to
as I
clarify
understand
that.
it, if the parent decides they want to quarantine their child.
We're just alleviating a mandatory board enforced and allowing the parent to have that choice to do with their child as they see fit.
For someone that is not symptomatic or has not tested positive.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Hold on 1 second.
And that's fine, but now we're putting the contact tracing back in place to be able to do that.
Okay.
Isn't that right? If we're going to contract trace them and then give the parent the option to say, hey, your child has been close contact to a positive COVID case at school, which means we would still have to contact trace if we did that.
I think we still notify, but allow them to make the decision. Is that
Well, we can't notify if we're not contact tracing. So
we're taking away with contact tracing?
Contact tracing was the motion. Mr. Wiggins, are you done? I'm sorry, we have to have a slip in order to, that's our procedure, so I apologize. We do have someone that wishes to comment on this item, but we're going to take public comment as soon as we're done with the board comment. Okay? Yes, Mr. Dinkin.
What about, I'm changing this also, but what about employees? If a student is in close contact with a teacher, what happens?
My understanding of that is if they're close contacted, they're forced to go home for 5 days because they're close contacted, whether they have symptoms or not. Is that accurate?
If they're not vaccinated.
So if they're not vaccinated and they're close contact, they're going to go home and use their sick days.
Well, the vaccination they've proven does not stop the virus from spreading. I've got a close relative that's had COVID, had 2 shots, and she's had COVID again. So, the antibodies and the shots didn't work.
Thank you. Hold on 1 second, Mr. Board. Ms. Brotherton, raise your hand, or whoever. Ms. Brotherton, I saw first. I'm sorry.
I don't have a whole lot to add to this that hasn't been said. It's a problem. This virus is not going away, ever. It's here to stay. We've got to learn to live with it. We cannot shut down every time it spikes up. We've got to be smart about it. I am concerned as a grandmother, as a mother of teachers, and just a citizen. I hear from these people all the time, and these kids, we're sending kids home that are well. So they're only going home, they're only being quarantined from school. These same kids that aren't sick, they're going to athletic events, they're going to parties, they're going to restaurants, they're going to church groups. They're only being quarantined from school. They're going to. I went last night to Halton High School's graduation. That was the most that has ever graduated at midterm. It's 46. I'm sure that all of the high schools are going to have higher numbers. The reason why there's so many graduating midterm, they're tired of fooling with the COVID. There's nothing for them to look forward to that's fun anymore. We've taken all that away. We're trying not to. I don't know the answer. I don't have the answer. I certainly don't want people to go home when there's and die or anything. And if you're sick, you stay home. We need parents helping in that area also. We need parents that are willing to keep their kids home if they're sick. I have a daughter, a sister-in-law that lives over in McKinney. Their policy over there is if you're sick, You stay home. If you're not sick, you go to school. There is no close contact quarantining at all. I know that's a different state, and I know we're in Louisiana, but I have people that I know. Someone came to me last night at graduation, and their son has been sent home 3 times.
Is he vaccinated?
And he is not sick. He has not been sick once. There are teachers that have been sent home, and they stay home 5 days. Well, they're running out of days because they're having to use their sick days. So they go back to school and they get sent home again, or they eventually get it. Our teachers are running out of sick days. I don't know the answer, but I do know that what we're doing is really not working. I don't know the answer. It's very frustrating for all of us. It just bothers me that we're supposed to be, our job is to take care of our employees and our students. And I think we're doing a disservice when we keep sending them home well. If you're well, you should be in the classroom. That's just my point of view. It's personal. That's how I feel about it. I just feel like there's something we need to do. Maybe, I don't know the answer.
Thank you. One second, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Bullard asked to speak, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Starker.
Thank you, Mr. President. There have been a multitude of excellent points mentioned here tonight. I think there are 2 things we will all agree on. Number 1, there is not a person sitting at this horseshoe that would knowingly jeopardize the health and well-being of any student, employee, you name it, in the Bossier Parish school system. We will not. We would not. There's not a person here that would do that. Second, we, like everybody else in the world, have been handed a pretty tough nut to crack. And that's how do you deal with this virus that has this pandemic that has literally taken over our nation, our world, you name it. Everything is considered in context of COVID. Now, I've got my own personal opinions, and they're not very nice when I get into a COVID conversation. I have a real problem with the way it has worked itself. The politicians have grabbed a hold of it, so they're churning it to their perspectives. Insofar as our policy, I would not disagree with Mr. Bamberg's comments. I think we all would agree. The child does better if they're in that classroom. It's the whole reason we got back in the classroom as quickly as we did. At the same time, we want to ensure the health and safety of our student body. I have reached out to the superintendent, reached out to our legal counsel, I've reached out to our risk person. And in every instance, they have told me, exercise caution. Do not move quickly. This is a multi-headed monster. And I have been hit with so many different, and I'm not going to repeat them because I'm not going to try to paraphrase or possibly misstate. Suffice it to say, in every instance, exercise, proceed with caution. I know parents don't want their kids at home when they are seemingly well. I've talked to constituents that have voiced that. I have likewise talked to some that are in the minority. But some who are concerned about possible exposure. The only real contacts I had from employees was anytime we were going to do something that might increase their exposure. Mask was one thing. The only time I really heard anything about masks, other than all the stuff floating on social media, were teachers, classroom teachers, who were so concerned. They felt like that was a level of protection that it gave them a sense of security. You know, it's debatable what level it is, but they still felt better just knowing I do have some sense of security. I have a problem, and I want Mr. Bamberg to know that was very eloquent what you had to say. I can't take exception to a word you said. But we pay a lot of money to this man, and to that man sitting right over there, and to the gentleman that has left, Mr. Rogers, to give us counsel and advice. And when they voice caution before moving on this, I have got to take that into effect. We've followed their guidance and counsel for how many years, and it has been good and valid. So that's one thing. One other point, and I'll shut up. Early on, when this conversation started, I realized all of our policies and protocols, they have been assembled somewhat in a piecemeal manner. You go back to 2019, early 2020, we were getting bombarded. You know, any alphabet agency there was out there, they're saying you got to do this, you got to do that. We got a president saying this, we got a president saying that. We got a governor saying this. We got an attorney general saying that. And we were trying to comply with all of these rules and regulations. And a conversation that I had earlier this week basically said, you know, isn't it time that we maybe stopped and backed up and looked at our policies and procedures where COVID is concerned? We've thrown it together in a manner that we felt like best protected our students and our employees. But the time may have come for us to review not just one little aspect, but the entire package. And I think that's something I would advocate we do that so that we have a more consistent, more comprehensive approach for the beginning of our next school year. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak.
Yes, one clarification. We have not taken away the ability for our employees to wear a mask if they choose to do so.
Oh, no.
Okay. I just want to make sure we clarify. Ms. Darby?
I feel like, and it's my personal opinion, that if we go this route, that we are putting together a plan that could be an adverse effect on us. Because we're trying to get people back to work, back to school. I feel like we're going to have some people to come back, and they are sick, and they will spread it. And then what?
They go home.
That's it.
Ms. Smith has a comment. Ms. Smith?
During the last week, I've had multiple phone conversations, multiple times spent, many sleepless nights, trying to do the right thing. What is the right decision? Because we do have so many different opinions
I agree with what's all that's been said here tonight on both sides. I understand both sides. I have a son who's in the 8th grade. He's been quarantined 3 times. He hasn't been sick from those 3 times. But we have gone online because we do have that avenue, and his grades have maintained consistent with what they were before. Is it optimal? Maybe not, but it's the best that we can do at this time, and I'm spending that time with him to try to make up the difference. Over the Christmas holidays, we're vaccinated. He's vaccinated. We came down with COVID on Christmas Eve. I was fine Christmas Eve morning, had a terrible headache. That evening, it hit me like a brick wall. And we quarantined. We stayed at home. I'd already exposed all my family, but we stayed at home after that point and got over it. Now we're susceptible to everything. I have done a lot of soul searching, and like I say, I would love nothing more than to get rid of these close contacts. I know it is putting a tremendous stress on our employees just from a bookkeeping perspective, from the time that it's taking. I know they're doing countless hours. I have to agree with Mr. Bullard though, when we are having our superintendent, our attorneys, our risk manager all caution us, have a niece who works in the emergency room at Willis Knighton. Mr. Stellenberg is not making up those statistics. They are lined up on the wall. EMTs are having to come in and work to treat them. When we decided to do away with masks, which we were mostly in favor of on this board, it was under the stipulation that we would choose to do close contacts. Does our policy need to be visited? Yes. We are in less than 3 weeks, 4 weeks from Christmas. We're not even a month out from a surge of COVID. And I would ask that we could table this, study this, and come back with a plan to address our whole COVID plan instead of making this decision tonight.
Amen.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anybody else have any comments?
Question. Do we have any data around positives resulting from close contact?
We do not that I know of. I know that we have asked for that information multiple times. But I'm not aware that we've gotten that information from Louisiana Department of Health or any other government entity. We got a text. Go ahead. Sorry, Superintendent Down.
We have tracked it ourselves at 1 or 2 sites. Mr. Rowland, and I'll say it up front, we don't know how accurate it is. It's an estimate. Go ahead, Mr. Rowland.
At one of the sites that have had the most quarantines, we tried to put some numbers, ballpark. It's not anything that we can take to the bank, but roughly 40% of the close contacts ended up being positive. So now, like Coach said, we don't know if they got it somewhere else, and we're not able to tell if they get it at school because the point's been made. The only place that we quarantine from is school, and we go everywhere else. So, but that's the number that's a ballpark number that we can give is around 40% with this Omicron variant.
And Mr. Roll, we got that number from one of 34 schools?
Well, from the one that's had the most.
Okay.
We just took the one that's had the most.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other board comment?
One more thing. I understand every comment that's been made here tonight by all my colleagues up here. I understand where they're coming from, and I know they're coming from the heart, and that's why I have not called not one person on this panel tonight and asked for a vote, try to change your mind, try to do anything to you other than you speak your mind and you vote your heart, and that's all we can do as board members. I just wanted to let everybody know I didn't call one person on this board to ask to say, hey, here's what we're looking at, here's what I'm thinking, and, but I thought this was an issue that everybody needed to look inside their own mind and decision, however you come about your decisions, and I respect every one of them.
Mr. Newman, did you have an additional comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the pull up a document from the Texas Education Authority Agency, where they still notify parents and let them make the decisions. So I just want to make sure this is a clear discussion and decision around we're removing a mandatory quarantine, but we're still going to notify parents that they were in close contact and let the parent make that decision.
Yes, sir. I believe the motion on the floor is that we will not contact trace. Okay. So, you know, if you know of a positive in your household, you make that decision. Again, but based on the motion on the floor, as I understand it, it would be we would not contact trace, and if they're positive, they would stay home for 5 days. Is that is that correct? Correct. Okay. So,
Mr. President.
Yes.
I personally think the policy needs to be reworked or updated. But if it is voted on and passes, what kind of timeline are we looking at putting it into effect?
Well, if our policy is changed, I'm guessing we give the superintendent the amount of time he would need to implement it. But if we're sending more kids back to school and more teachers back to school, I don't know how much time it would take to allow them to come back to school.
But then we're at peak now.
That's what I'm told, Mr. Snellgrove. You think we have peaked or we're about to peak?
Just from doing this for a couple of years, I mean, we're in a peak. I mean, we don't know if it's going to start coming down or not. Just the next several days or a week will probably tell that, because now we're starting to get the daily data back from the Louisiana Office of Public Health on that dashboard. And that dashboard, all you got to do is go to the Louisiana Office of Public Health COVID map, and it'll pull up. You just click it, and you'll see the dashboard that I see, that I get all the information from. Mr. Altman, a long time ago when this started, he wanted me to start sending it out to the jurors, and the list just got so big that I just sent it to my weather group now.
But that's been included in that email that you've sent out once a week since this started, right?
Yeah, and I probably misspoke on when it started, because it probably been like maybe a month or several months, because when it first got going, nobody really knew how serious this was going to be. But the hospitals are at the highest peak they've ever been since March of 2020. And I'm not here to sway one way or the other. I'm just here to give you the facts and the information that I get for your situational awareness, so you can make the proper decision for the community.
So if we vote on this and it passes, could we put a timeline starting February the 1st, or at least give it a couple of weeks before we implement it?
Mr. Faber's motion.
First, I'd like to, I want to hold that question just for a second, because I want to ask Assistant Superintendent Rowland, the last thing I want to do is take the choice out of a parent on how they handle their child, but also don't want to put this undue burden and pressure of how we contact trace. And I've seen the chart of what it all takes to contact trace one kid, what that takes, and I can't imagine how we even had the hours to get 2,000 kids out of school last Friday. Do we have the manpower to, if we change this to say we're just going to contact the parent and let them know that their student has been close contacted, or the teacher, hey, you have been close contacted, still give them the option to stay in school until they have symptoms. But how much of a undertaking is that? I've heard that that's a huge pressure point for our facilities.
Well, we have COVID clerical aid at all of our sites. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Just the massive amount of it, it's filtered now back to the principal, back to the assistant principal, and coach and the counselor, and everybody else has been doing it as well. The one thing that I think, one piece of it is not only do we contact trace and call the parent and make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be, but then you come back and you do a report for every single child. So that paperwork has been what has been really time consuming and cost us to spend a lot of time at
The
night.
follow up to close contact?
It's the finishing of the paperwork where every child is added to that list and then that paperwork is submitted to the best, where we have Monica England works through Red Cap, and then that Red Cap program, that database then delivers to the state, and that's how they begin to count some of the numbers. Are our numbers 100%? Sure. They can't be. I mean, it's just, there's been a lot. But we do have a person that does that. I mean, that's what we're going to do anyway, right? And we're going to continue to call and inform people of what's happened and maintain confidentiality, and they understand that. So we have a person that we hired for that purpose.
Okay. Mr. Rowland, do we have the capacity as a system to contact trace and educate the way we're currently doing things?
I mean, we've been doing it, so I think we still can contact trace
and
educate
and run our schools. And so what we're doing right now is working.
Well, the quarantine part is, I think, what you referenced. Is sending kids home and teachers being home, but contact trace doesn't. I mean, that's just the first step.
I guess I'm confused.
So would it take a lot of pressure off if we said we're going to contact trace and A sits by B, so we're going to call B's parents and say you've been close contacted. We just want you to know it's your decision whether you want to send your child to school or not as a parent.
Yeah, I mean
does that take a lot of the follow-up paperwork away?
Yes, well, it would. I mean, by and large, because you wouldn't be quarantining, and then you wouldn't have teachers by that time, having to go online and figure out who's on quarantine, who's not, who's at home, and doing all the other stuff that goes along with it that we hadn't really talked about.
So we inform and stop.
Right.
Yeah, no quarantine, no reporting. And so we would also do that with our teaching staff, our employees, and say, hey, you've been looked at as a close contact, traced. You have the ability to stay here and teach your students, or you can go home and quarantine yourself if you would like to do that.
I think so. I mean, that's, again, this is all brand new, so we're kind of.
No, I get it. I'm trying to come to something that works for all parties involved, and I don't want to take the parent's decision away to not be able to take their child home and say I'd like to play this one with my child at the house, and give them that option. Now, my thought process is it's going to be like when we said, hey, you can wear masks if you want to, and you know what our schools are like. There's a few to do it, and that's perfectly fine, but the vast majority of our kids are walking around without masks on. And so at least it would be an option that way for students to be and employees to be notified.
Your question, do we have the capability of doing it? I always say yes. I think our people are going to do everything they need to do to implement.
I get it, but I still want the education part to be and leave that to those 36 individuals that and it doesn't spill over into now all of a sudden we're taking a principal out of the equation of what they should be doing on a daily basis, or an assistant principal, or somebody else in that school system. 36 people that we have hired for those positions, can they handle that if we take we inform and then let them make their own decision?
I think so.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rowland, Mr. Backhouse had a question, and then Ms. Smith.
Mr. Rowland, I think you've done a magnificent job on handling this situation. My question would be to Mr. Vandenberg, would you be willing to amend your motion?
So it depends. I guess I don't need to answer your question.
Amend it to bind everybody together. But no, amend it to, now that this has come to light, give Coach Rowland some time to work on this and maybe what do you think, 2 years, next meeting?
Well, Mr. Rowland, what would be the time that you would need to implement? I mean, if we're already doing contact tracing and we're just taking the second half of it away, are we set up to do this now?
I mean, we would,
Well, we're contacting the parents anyway,
Yeah.
because we're telling them to come pick their child up from school.
I guess we need, Coach and I need clear direction. Mr. Bullard mentioned reworking the policy and the protocols and taking a look at them. You know, trying to, I look at them every day, so I need specific direction on what do we need to look at to maybe make it clearer or easier, because we have worked extensively to make it concise.
I know. And I think this simplifies it a lot, though. I mean, it would be simply continue through the place where you inform somebody that they've been close contact, traced, and let them make their decision. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask if we could table this to have it and give direction to them of the policy to rework that and to have it on the February 3rd agenda.
Mr. Down?
That's a motion.
Well, I already have a motion on the floor, so I'm going to have to get a.
This will take the president over the other motion. Table. Take the president over his motion, or takes priority over his.
Mr. Guy.
Mr. Guys?
If a motion table is made and seconded, it takes precedent, would be voted on first. If it fails, it comes back to the original motion.
I'd like to hear what Chris wants to say.
Yes.
I was going to say, we have several questions that we need to get clarified, and we would appreciate your time to do so.
And I have, I'm not sure is it appropriate time to get public comment, or do we vote on the table first? Because we do have a public comment on this
I go ahead and receive the public comment and then vote.
Okay.
And members of the public can also comment on the motion
to table.
The table as well will kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm trying my best to read. Lloyd Core or okay, Core. BYL, I think that's great. BYL, I think you have been to your school board meeting. Yeah. We'll get a signature for you, and I know that.
May not finish by courtesy. May not finish by courtesy.
Yeah, if you need a signature or haven't gotten one, we'll be happy to do that. I'm sorry, sir, we won't start your time. We're trying to let these kids mercy rule.
Wait, are we eligible for public comment?
Absolutely.
On the table.
We did not. There's normally a sign-up sheet, but you are a student, and I know you are an employee, so I'm going to allow those 2 comments after we get comments from Mr. Core, and then we will move forward.
You didn't have the documents on this neither. You didn't have the backup documents for the public to look at.
I'm sorry, Mr. Core, you have the floor, sir.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to address this esteemed board. As a parent, I'm concerned, and listening to this board this afternoon, I'm even more concerned. Are we following the CDC guidelines or not? That's my question. This is an evolving pandemic, and as a parent, I need to go to a source to say, hey, what do I need to do? My daughter was sent home as a close contact, and I was informed that her vaccine was outside of 5 months. To my surprise, I went to the LDH website and found out that 2 days ago they changed that criteria that said she needed a booster shot in order to stay in school and not be a close contact. You guys were expedient in making that change to say, hey, close contact needs to go home. And I'm just concerned, what are we following as far as policy? Because the CDC also recommends masks. We're not following that policy, so as a parent, where do I go? And that's my concern.
I'd love to have an answer for you. I'd love to tell you where to go. Our current protocols are there. Again, I don't think, I'm not going to give my personal opinion but I can't tell you our protocols are on the website. Each schools have them, and we have emailed them to the parents that we are currently following. So what we would be discussing tonight would be a change of those protocols.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yes, ma'am. If you would come to the mic, state your name for the record, and then
may I stand here? Can you hear me?
no, ma'am. We
Okay.
Since we are recorded, we have to have you on the microphone.
Okay, I'll be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Bass, for giving me this opportunity. I didn't come here to speak to the board because I would have signed up, but I'm compelled to say what I'm fixing to say. I will have to support Mr. Downing. He said he spoke with 5 doctors, and I've had the experience of dealing with infectious diseases. It wiped 5 beautiful sisters of mine out, and so I will have to support. These doctors know what they're talking about. I had a mindset myself to say one time, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They hit everything just like they said. I sat and watched an infection in a hospital, intensive care, wipe 5 people out. First time I came, I saw somebody with a yellow gown when I was going to my sister's room. And I told my other sister, I said, I wonder what's wrong with them. The next time I came, the second one, there were 6 people there, and infectious disease wiped every last one of them and left my sister standing for 3 months. So I will have to agree with him, and we need to listen to the signs, and I respect each of you. I think you're good decision makers, but I think, as our board member has said, this is an invisible enemy. We don't know what we're dealing with, okay? And you can, it's like the little boy who cried wolf. The wolf finally came. So I will ask that you take all of this under consideration. We had a large tutoring program. We don't have 5 kids now. It's wiped all of them out. So this is real, you know. This is not politics. This is real here. So, as he said, the CDC guidelines, I think we should follow them, and we should see where this is going to take us. But all of you have some valid points, but I think it should go under great consideration. And you do have a leader, Mr. Downing, and you're his boss, so I think you just should consider that. And thank you for letting me address the board.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry for your loss. We did have one more student that wanted to come and speak. Just make sure you state your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm Colin Herndon. I'm a junior at Benton High, and I've been quarantined since Christmas break, and I continue to do everything. Before I say anything, I'm not really concerned with the whole mask and vaccination, so take what I say as you will. But my mom received a call this morning. Junior year is when you start taking those college classes and AP, dual enrollment, whatnot. And I got a call this morning from one of those college classes, which are very lecture heavy and dependent on us being there to see the lectures, hear them, take the test, that said that I'm basically too far gone and behind to even continue the class. So, no disrespect to any decisions that have been made, but the protocols have failed me because I'm pretty reliant on my GPA, and I do have plans and aspirations to further my education after high school. And me being quarantined has really detrimented that. Like, it's taken away from me a lot. And I mean, I'm not here, I don't really have any solutions to offer or anything else to say, but the protocols have failed me, because if you're too far behind to even catch up in an AP class, I mean, what else can you do? And I'm one of those students that has full access to technology at home, and I know that most people that are quarantined don't have that. And yeah, something needs to change with it. Thank you.
May I ask you?
One second. Go ahead. No, I was bringing out the info.
I appreciate your comment.
Yes, sir.
You speak very. Have you been sick?
I've never been sick. I've been quarantined. I think you look on the on course, it says I've been to school 60 days and been out of school 32 days, and I've not been sick one of them. And I'm not vaccinated, nor have I really ever wore a mask. I do martial arts 6 days a week, and it's a pretty close contact sport with 300 plus people within that span of a week, and I've not been sick nor symptomatic.
And so you've missed school, but you haven't quarantined. If you're right, and so you're the only student that I had a chance to ask on the record.
I'm not quarantined for me.
How many of your friends and counterparts and everyone else are actually quarantined as recommended?
Zero. I mean, I go out to eat 7 days a week, and I'm at martial arts, mixed martial arts, and CrossFit 7 days a week. At my gym, CrossFit 7 days a week.
I applaud your courage. I couldn't do what you just did at your age. So thank you for your very candid, heartfelt comments. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Buller to table it, and a second by, who was the second? Motion by Ms. Smith. Hey guys, it's my first ride, okay? Give me a minute. Had a motion by Ms. Smith. I had a second by Mr. Buller to tape. Please repeat the table
I
to.
like to table it and to give, I think staff has enough direction by what they've heard tonight, put together a protocol plan and present it to us on email prior to the next meeting, February 3rd.
I have one question to Mr. Bamburn. Would you amend your motion if it passes to give them until February 3rd for implementation of your motion, as opposed to table it and then make a decision and then wait another 2 weeks for the implementation? That would give us the time, but if you amended your motion to give our staff till February the 3rd, we still have a date that we have instead of kicking it to the next meeting and then making a decision. Would you be willing to amend your motion?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what we were voting on. Yes, Mr. Wiggins. Well, I understand, but I trust Mr. Bamberg's word. If he says he's going to amend something, I trust his word. And I understand. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what we're doing. Mr. Backhouse, I believe you had a statement.
We need to.
We need.
Then do we?
If we table this, Dennis's motion would be off the table. We could not hear it again until the February 3rd meeting. Whatever we acted on, we would then give time after February the 3rd. I don't know how long it would take for information of whatever we decided there. Am I understanding that correctly, Mr. Guys?
If the motion to table were to pass, then there would be no action taken on this item tonight. Staff would study it, come back and make a presentation for you to vote on formally at your February meeting.
But we could still change whatever we would want on the February 3rd meeting if what Mr. Bamberg suggested didn't work once they study his motion.
Regardless of what is presented to the board at its February meeting, that would still be subject to amendment, revision by the board. That is correct.
Same thing for both, but if we vote to table this, then that motion is off the table.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I needed to understand. Any other questions before we vote on whether you want to table this? Yes?
Before we vote on the table, the understanding that the staff will work on updating and
we will get together with Mr. Bamberg and refine the procedures that he has requested, and I feel confident that we would be able to implement the proposal by that following Monday, which would be the 7th of February. So Mr. Rowland, you have an opinion on
I'm just writing stuff down as everybody talks right now about different ideas. And I would like to get, like you said with Mr. Bamberg, to specify exactly the direction we want to go so we can narrow the focus and it's clear to everyone. So I've written down 4 things already that he and I can discuss and talk about. But we could, if whatever the board decides on, we can vote, turn it around, have it out on Friday.
So if we vote again, I just want to make sure if the table is defeated and Dennis amends his motion with the date, we have what you're asking for. Yes. Okay. So knowing that, if we vote the table down, they'll have an opportunity to work with Mr. Bamberg when he amends the motion.
I think either way, whether it's tabled or whether it moves forward, I think the outcome is going to be the same. We're going to be working on a refinement. It'll be presented on the 3rd of February for your approval or adjustment, whatever you'd like to do. I think the outcome is going to be the same. There's going to be a proposal presented on February 3rd that will be in line with what we discussed here, and then you can vote on it to move it forward, which my preference would be the following Monday. That gives us time to communicate that if it does pass. But I think the outcome will be the same, whether it's tabled or whether it is moved forward from Mr. Bamberg's motion.
So, table, we're not sure. We know what this motion is, but implementation will be there. Sounds like Mr. Downey is one way or the other. Either way, we have a vacant future. So, first to vote on the table. If we vote that down, Mr. Bamberg can amend his motion. Is that how I understand the procedure? If we vote it down, Mr. Bamberg gets to amend his motion. If we uphold the table, then Mr. Bamberg does not get to amend his motion. Am I understanding that?
If we vote for the table,
Nothing happens.
Man, I am so glad y'all gave me this one for my first round. Okay, so if the table fails, then Mr. Bamberg has the option to amend his motion. So we have a motion to table and a second.
Well, let me just clear before I vote. If we table this,
Then Mr. Bamberg doesn't get a chance to remove his motion. It's tabled.
but he will still have the opportunity to work with the school staff and come up with it.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Bullard to table this. Please cast your vote. Yep, clear as mud. All right, motion to table it passes. Item 3.07, approval of trip requests.
These are
Motion to approve by Mr. Bullard, second by Ms. Smith. Please vote. Robert. Item passes unanimously. Item 4.01, announcement of superintendent comments.
Next regular session of the Pleasant Prairie School Board is February 3rd at 6 p.m. here at the Vic. Please line out.
Thank you, Superintendent Downey. Item 5.01, adjournment of the regular session. Mr. Slack, second. Please cast your vote. Please leave your handouts on your seat.